What's going on? It's Tysophon, and I wanted to come on here and give you guys my quick thoughts on the Final Fantasy 16 demo that everyone's been waiting for. And I'm just gonna say that this demo really invigorated me to play the game even more when the game finally drops on the 22nd. And if you watch my videos on Final Fantasy 16 that I've made before, you will see that I was kind of on the fence about the direction that this game will be taking the franchise, and I'm not sure if I would probably enjoy it as much as I did the older titles in the series. But boy, let me just say I was wrong about this one for sure. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, so I won't go too much into the story aspects in this demo. But one thing that stood out to me in this was the amount of blood and the amount of death that goes on in this game. It's literally insane. The first couple of minutes of the game, someone gets crushed under a boulder, war is broken out, and people are getting iron and steel driven into their bodies parts getting chopped off and everything. I think it's really interesting to see how similar this game is to the medieval time period with all the death and bloody violence that happens throughout the demo. I've done a lot of research on that specific time period in history, and one of the things that I've learned was that death wasn't taken as seriously or as seen as a big deal back then as it is now. They didn't have treatments or cures for diseases, and there were a lot of wars being had, which resulted in large populations of citizens dying very frequently. Bodies were being thrown in burning pits after they passed and weren't given a proper burial most of the time unless you were a person of high status. Guillotines were still being used back then, and people sometimes celebrated the death of criminals, which you don't really see today, compared to nowadays where we have funerals and we bury the dead in caskets underground and we mourn them. It really lets you know that Square isn't holding back with this entry, and they're not afraid to kill off not only just NPC characters, but characters that are very important to the plot in this game. It doesn't seem like this is going to be some lighthearted start to a game like Final Fantasy 9, or like some cool action base like Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 10. This game seems like it's going to be for a very mature audience with all the blood, death, and mature themes that you could find in this. Now, as far as graphics go, I think the graphics are pretty good overall, but not as crisp as I was hoping for. I played the demo multiple times in both graphics mode and in frame rate mode, and I still encountered a lot of motion blur when in combat, or just doing something as simple as turning the camera. Personally, I prefer to use frame rate mode in my playthrough because it is an action RPG game, so I need to have very responsive controls, and I also want to be able to see every frame of movement my enemy does if I wanted to dodge them perfectly every time. But I found this to be kind of annoying because the motion blur kicks in sometimes when enemies are doing certain movements, and when my enemy is about to attack me, pretty much the only thing I have to go off of is if my enemy is going to lunge forward at me with an attack. And it also doesn't help because in this demo, most of the time you have multiple enemies on the screen at once, but hopefully we'll get a day 1 patch for this upon release. Now for the part other than the story that made me pre-order the game, it's gameplay. In my previous video that I made on Final Fantasy 16, I said that the game looked kinda stiff and not satisfying to hit enemies, right? Well, I'm here to say that I was completely wrong in my opinion, and that this game actually feels extra smooth and fluid when running around with Clive and when you're slashing up enemies in combat. The dodging in this game feels really cool because it's the one and only time where the motion blur effect is actually put to good use, because time slows down for a second if you get a perfect dodge. I really enjoyed the iconic challenge part of the demo where you have access to 3 summons, Garuda, Titan, and Phoenix to use. The combos that you could pull off with these 3 summons are insane, and my problem with the demo is that the enemies died pretty quickly, so I couldn't get a chance to really drag out my combos that I came up with myself. My favorite series of combos to do is when you use the ability called Magic Burst. It's where you press the magic button after you slice an enemy, and it makes you follow up with a magic attack afterwards, and you can keep doing this consecutively until Clive finishes his combo. I like how Torgal follows up after a combo finishes and acts like a combo extender for Clive. The items are quick and easy to use on the fly. When Clive controls Phoenix, his circle move acts like how Noctis's Warp Strike works in a way. Titan's abilities take a chunk of health off the enemy and can be held to a certain point to give its move different properties. And my favorite icon to use was Garuda because it has a move called Gouge, where you just unleash a multitude of attacks on your opponent until the duration of the move is up, where the player decides to drop the combo. This might be a hot take, but I would say that this game's combat is better than any DMC game I've ever played. Even the icon battles in the demo were entertaining to play, with all the aiming that you have to do with all the destruction and chaos that's going on the screen. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm glad we got a chance to play this demo before release, because it's really changed my perspective and my opinions on this game as a whole, and now I'm more confident in the success of this installment for the franchise. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts on the demo in the comment section down below. Let me know if this demo really helped you do a whole 360 on how you view Final Fantasy 16 compared to how you viewed it before the demo dropped. This has been Tysophon, and I'm out, people. Later.